gonna say, born to play. Every day gonna say, hello.
Good evening. I'm Lou Goldstein, and welcome to another edition of Focus On. Tonight, my guest is Dr. Douglas Clayton, who basically has made making documentary films for a while, and recently made The Heart of Camden, the story of Father Michael Doyle, which was narrated by Martin Sheen, the Emmy Award-winning actor. And we'll be talking a little bit to Doug about that and more of his documentaries in a little bit. But first of all, thanks for coming on the show, Doug. It's great having you here because I know you've been running around and you've been very busy.
Thanks, Lou. It's a pleasure to be here and really appreciate you giving us the opportunity to talk about this very special man, Michael Doyle.
Yeah, it is very special, and we'll be getting into it. So that our audience knows, this is a very interesting film, a film that you should see if you haven't seen it yet, but also a film that has won numerous awards. And I'm proud to say one of the awards that it did win was at two of the festivals that I am the festival director at. One was the Nassau Film Festival this year, and also the Cranford Film Festival, which had its inaugural debut earlier this year. But I also want to take this moment to thank everybody and talk about the Nassau Film Festival for just a second. The Nassau Film Festival will be coming back, hopefully, to the Princeton Garden Theater. Everybody should be healthy and well on May 21st and 22nd. We'll also be doing it virtually, but we're having the in-person screening. Hopefully everybody can make it. And recently we just got notice that Nassau was ranked number 39 in the world of all the short film festivals, comprehensive short film festivals. We've moved from 75 down to 39, so we're really pleased to know that we're in the top 40 in the world. So thank you very much to everybody who's made that possible. All the filmmakers, all the staff behind Nassau Film Festival, everybody who's made it work. So a big thank you, and also a thank you to George McCullough here, our executive director at Princeton Community TV, who has helped me over the years with the collating of the films for the Nassau Film Festival. So with that said, I'd like to get back and talk a little about Doug. Doug has been living his dream and his filmmaking passion by running Film Doc LLC, which provides filmmaking coaching and leadership development to firms speaking in public on film's impact and producing inspiring documentaries. His approach to maximize film's impact is centered on his trademarked total recall evidence-based model, which he'll discuss. You should know that he's also a native of New Jersey. He earned his doctorate, that's why I called him Dr. Doug, from the University of Pennsylvania, and is an alumnus of the Wharton Business School. His doctoral dissertation topic was Total Recall, as you remember the film, using film to enhance learning, involving a global experiment that resulted in empirical evidence that using film in a company learning acting can enhance learning. So we're going to talk a little bit about The Heart of Camden, which I mentioned earlier, which premiered in October 2020, and the story of Father Michael Doyle, which has been in numerous film festivals, winning the recognition that it has. And also another film that Doug was involved with, Doyle for Camden, has won awards and been featured in multiple international film festivals. So with that said, quite a history you've had. I know you've been in the HR business for many years and many decades actually, but yet you've managed to make that transition and make it a learning environment for a lot of private companies out there that want to, produce films for their staff and for their organizations. So, but let's talk a little bit about documentaries. So, first question, Doug, I have to ask you is why documentaries? Why did you get involved in making documentaries? What inspired you to make documentaries?
Well, I was involved with making films for corporate America, for the company that I worked for, SES, and they were parodies of mainstream films such as James Bond, Mission Impossible, and other films, with the purpose of giving the audience, our employees, a fun learning experience. So I had a great time doing that. We made parodies on The Godfather, also Star Trek, and employees just loved it. And then when I was going to University of Pennsylvania, our very first learning block for our doctoral program was using technology to enhance learning. And the technology that we focused on was film. and filmmaking. So there was a challenge to us to, make a micro mini documentary. So I did. It was my wife making Russian pancakes, and people loved it. And then I thought, geez, I'd love to try making a real professional documentary. And that was it. And so I got together with a couple of fellows who had a similar desire, and we made a film called Doyle for Camden. Doyle is an Italian word for responsibility. So that's how it started.
Nice, nice. So, there's a lot of processes involved in making a film, whether it's editing, producing, directing, colorization, narration. What are the processes that you enjoy most when you're making a film, and what surprised you most in having to make a film?
Well, the big three, the way that I see it, is the pre-production, the actual production, and then the post-production. I will say that I enjoy all three of them equally. The pre-production is the planning, it's the framing, it's trying to encourage people and influence people to get involved. It's choosing your team. It's beginning to consider the story. The production piece is fascinating because this is where you meet the people. And I had a really wonderful experience a number of years ago where I took an afternoon filmmaking class that featured the great Albert Maysles, the godfather of documentary filmmaking. And he said a couple of things to me that always stayed with me. One is, when he's making a film, he falls in love with the character.
Okay.
Or not the character, but the person who they're doing the documentary about. And I thought, it seems like such a strange thing, but that's actually what happens to me. And it's maybe not love, it's more respect of the person. So I love that part, getting to know them better as we're interviewing.
Right.
And so then the post-production piece is quite important, because that's where I think the artwork takes place, with editing, with the color, as you said. What type of music do we want to use to perhaps evoke a certain emotion? So for our most recent film, we had a wonderful editor named Frank Weiss, and he's a real artist, top-notch editor, and made all the difference in the world. So of all of the, I'll say, micro elements of making the film, I think I enjoy the interview piece and then the editing piece the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, post-production is always a lengthy process. How long did it take from production, finishing the actual shooting of the film? How long did post-production take to actually you were done with it and then getting it on?
There were two stages of it. So the first stage of the post-production, which was to make the film good enough to deliver, that took probably 6 months or so.
Okay.
And then when COVID hit, we had more time, because we were scheduled to have some wonderful screenings and premieres in Camden. It was going to be just a fantastic thing. Then COVID hit, so we had more time. So we went back and we did more that we wanted to do that we just didn't have time, such as the aerial photography that you see, the drone footage. We modified a little bit the music. We added this dance, kind of a dance sequence at the end with children from the church. So that took another, I'll say, 3 months, total of 9 months of post-production.
Wow, that's a good chunk of time. It's a good chunk of time. For anybody who's interested in making documentaries or films, please have that in mind when you're putting your budget aside, because it's interesting. So, basic question: how did the Heart of Camden get made? The story of Father Michael Doyle. What interested you in the subject, of Father Doyle, and how did it get made?
Well, there were a few folks who were instrumental, probably the most instrumental, Mark and Ann Beata. They are the owners of Beata Nursing. They have a great love and respect for Michael Doyle. Father Doyle was reaching a point in his career and his age and all of his wisdom, Ann and Mark said, we should capture that somehow. Somebody should just interview him with a tape recorder or maybe with a camera. Carlos Morales, who was in the film, he's the executive director of the Heart of Camden. He saw my first documentary, Doyle for Camden, and he thought, let me have a conversation with Doug and see what he thinks about recording Michael Doyle. So we talked about it. The more we talked about it, the more it made sense to turn it into a full-blown short documentary, to really tell a story with a narrative arc and all of that. And so Ann and Mark Beata, they funded the film.
Nice.
And that's how it got started. That's how I got involved. And the process of making the film and getting to know Michael Doyle, I had only met him once before. And it was when we made Davati for Camden, we had a conversation. But we spent 3 separate days, 1 hour each day, interviewing Michael Doyle. And getting to know him was just an amazing experience. And then we would spend time, drinking tea. I remember once he offered me a shot of Irish whiskey this one afternoon. He's a wonderful guy. He's a great sense of humor. But in those conversations, it was pretty magical to really understand the wisdom that people love about him, people who have known him for many, many, many years. And yeah, so
Good.
it was a wonderful experience. Albert Maysles was right. If you just focus on the character, if you respect what they do, something magical can happen. And that's what happened for me anyway. It got to a point where I ended up sponsoring a child in their school. This is the effect that Father Doyle has on people.
And he's a very interesting character too, right? And he seems to pack his church, every Sunday, and people come from all over.
Yeah, it's true. People, when he was, an active priest, he retired about this time last year. But yeah, there were people coming from Delaware, from Pennsylvania, from Maryland, just to attend his mass. And it's because it was very unique. He would take his time. He would work with a core group of people. And he would, come up with a particular sermon and liturgy, and he would address controversial topics, whether it was dirty politics or, anti-war or pro-gay rights. And so I think people really respected that. It was something new, refreshing, different. So yeah.
It's good. Well, we have a clip of the movie that we'd like to show you. This is a clip of the movie, The Heart of Camden, the story of Father Michael Doyle, and directed by Doug Clayton. So let's take a look at it. It's about a 1-minute clip, so let's take a look at it right now.
Camden is a place that holds beauty and holds pain.
He was a leader in so many ways for social rights and environmental rights. And early on when I first came here, and there was always a cause that he was supporting.
He draws you into the conversation, and he leaves you with his imprint that you are ready to go out and change the world.
So Doug, great clip of the movie. I think everybody now has an idea, a flavor of exactly what the movie is about. So let me ask you, what impact, if any, did the making of this film, have on you?
On me personally, I was raised Catholic, and as is true, I think, with a lot of Catholics, right? We tend to drift away from the church. You become a little bit jaded and disillusioned. Life gets busy, but it actually did. The process helped me to kind of reevaluate, my faith, I guess. I've always been a person of great faith, I think. But there was something about this that just added something more to it. So it was very helpful for me personally that way. And just from a filmmaking standpoint, working with Bill Horin and Frank Weiss was just a wonderful opportunity. When Carlos asked me if I would, direct and produce a documentary on Michael Doyle, I said, yeah, but I'd like to bring in a couple of professionals, and it was Bill Horin. And Bill made beautiful movies over the years, and he and I had a conversation, and he said, I'd love to work with you. I said, well, I'd love to work with you. So it's a mutual admiration, I guess, society. So here was the opportunity. So I learned a lot from them as well. Okay.
Now I know that you had a very well-known actor. You can tell by his voice, even if your eyes are closed, Martin Sheen, who agreed to narrate the film.
Yeah.
So how did you get Martin Sheen to come on board? And what was his interest in making of the film?
I watched a wonderful documentary by a fellow named Sean Doherty. It's called it's a film about Father Doyle, but mainly about his poetry, and it's called The Poet of Poverty. It's a short documentary, and Martin Sheen narrated it, so I was very impressed with that. It was made a number of years ago. So when we were trying to identify a narrator, a voice for the film, I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if we could get Martin Sheen? So I wrote him a letter. Someone gave me his address. He called me the following weekend. I couldn't believe it. I'm talking to Martin Sheen, and he said, I love Michael Doyle, I'm in. I said, would you like to know a little bit about the film? Would you like to see some samples of it? He said, nope, I'm in. And that was it. And it was a great experience. We ended up working with him for a couple of hours. It was coincidentally on an Ash Wednesday, and Martin's a very faithful person. He's a very devout Catholic. And so it was great. We did it via Zoom. It was a month before COVID really hit hard in the US and things shut down. So, but still, we did it via Zoom, and he was just great to work with. You know, he gave us 4 or 5 versions of every single line.
Oh, yeah?
And he did this pro bono. He didn't charge a dime because he wanted to give back to Father Doyle and to the church, and to the Heart of Camden.
Sure.
But he was just wonderful to work with. And so we've stayed in touch, and he's a terrific fellow, that's for sure.
So do you think there'll be any future projects which you may have a chance to work with him again on?
Well, it'd be a great honor for me, that's for sure. If there was a future project involving Michael Doyle, absolutely, I think he would be in, but I'm not sure that he would be willing to work just with me. But I'll certainly reach out to him, that's for sure. I did talk to him a little bit about possibility of framing out a story, a dramatic interpretation of Michael Doyle, and I said, you know, if I did this, if I came up with a pitch, you know, with a framework, would you be interested in maybe playing the present day Father Doyle? And he said, oh, absolutely, I would be. So just, you know, if you get it to a point where you have a project, let me know. So
that would be great.
Yeah,
That'd
cool.
be great. Now I know we talked a little bit in the beginning about your own interest, you know, your own business, Film Doc LLC, and maybe you can tell everybody what that's about. You know, you do work with different companies and leadership teams, and maybe give us an idea about, you know, what are you doing there? Yeah,
sure. Thanks. It's focused in a couple of areas. First of all, I just retired on March the 31st from my 20-year fantastic career with SES. This is Society for European Satellites, where I ran HR in the Americas, and I ran learning and development globally, which really, they gave me free rein to make parodies and films and things like that.
Right.
So it was a fantastic experience.
Congratulations.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And on April the 1st, I began consulting and Film Doc LLC. And so I consult in the area of human resources, you know, advice and needs, plus also leadership development. We are also in the area of mentoring or coaching companies who find the process of filmmaking to be mysterious, which of course it is until you make a film. So I can help demystify that. And there was a firm who I worked with last year. They're located in the Netherlands, and they were making a series of films, training films. And so we had a great experience working together on that. Also conducting coaching as well, executive coaching. So it's kind of narrowly focused there. In terms of filmmaking, my desire is to continue making documentaries, but the documentaries have to be films that inspire people to make a difference. And that's what Heart of Camden was about, and that's what this film was about. So it's to tell an accurate story of something that happened or about someone, and to do it where it's aesthetically appealing or hopefully beautiful to the viewer. So I still plan to make more documentaries.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now I know a lot of people have seen the film, you know, seen both films, and seen Doyle, and also have seen, you know, the Heart of Camden. And some have indicated an interest in making a contribution. And if they want to make a contribution, you know, on behalf of Father Doyle, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, it's first of all, the website for the Heart of Camden is it's www.theheartofcamden.org. So if you want to get involved, the good folks at the Heart of Camden would be indebted. I did this project pro bono. It was my attempt to give back a little bit. And I'm really glad that I did. I know Martin Sheen is very happy that he did as well, because folks are responding. Every time it's featured in a film festival, we have people who reach out. When there was a beautiful article by Kevin Reardon in the Philadelphia Inquirer, people reached out, how can I make a difference? And what's interesting is people will say, either I want to make a difference for the Heart of Camden,
Right.
or they'll say, Father Doyle's words have inspired me. His example has inspired me to consider how I can make a difference in my own community, which I think is just as beautiful
That's
as
huge. Yeah.
it's amazing, isn't it? So
That's great.
Mhm.
That's really great. So let's talk about the future. What type of future projects do you have in mind?
well, I have a couple of ideas.
They can let us in on, to the extent
Yeah,
they can.
sure thing. So
Yeah.
I won't share any names, but there's someone who I'm going to reach out to, who has an organization that does something quite magical and special. What they do is they help soldiers, warriors, who are struggling with post-traumatic stress. They help them. The form of therapy is filmmaking, and they equip them with cameras, lighting, sound, and then they teach them how to make a mini short film, maybe a 5-minute film, and it's their form of therapy. I think that's an important story for people to understand, that that's taking place, and I think artistically, I can just kind of imagine how wonderful the film could be. So that's the one that I'm considering right now. So
That's great.
yeah.
So one of the things I like to ask all my guests, which hopefully won't take you by surprise too much, but one thing I like to ask all my guests is about role models in their life, and who has been someone or individuals who have made a mark in your life, and someone that has served as a role model to you, whether it was growing up or professionally.
Well, there's a whole bunch, right? Any success that I've enjoyed, it's, I have 5 wonderful sisters. I have a terrific brother. My parents were just amazing. There's a particular woman named Paula Fairley who made a huge difference in my life. She was my first boss when I moved into the world of human resources, and she taught me so much about life, about what it's like to be a woman or an African American or what have you in the work world, and some of that was life changing for me. So she was a great role model, and she still is, actually. Very, very brave. So from that standpoint, she made a big difference in my life. So yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. So we talked more about documentaries and your interest in documentaries. Are there documentaries that you've seen that have interested you especially, that got you on the track of making documentaries? Because a lot of people are out there. There's future filmmakers, watching us right now, and want to know, basically, how do you get started in this? I mean, a lot of people have great ideas, and some get to the screen, others don't make it to the screen, right?
Yeah.
But how do you really get to the point where you can actually make a film?
Yeah, so that's a great question. A couple things. One is the first one, Davadi, right? It's just a couple of guys in a basement saying, would love to try making a movie. Does somebody have a camera? Yeah, I got a camera. Does somebody have sound? I have sound. And then you just kind of figure it out. But it takes forever, right? And I think the most important thing really is grit, is to stick with it. It is not an easy process. It's not crazy difficult, right?
Right.
But you run into a lot of roadblocks, and there's got to be somebody who is so committed and so passionate about seeing this project through, and that's got to be you as the director and as the producer, because life gets in the way, right? We all have full-time jobs, and so to me it's very much about grit, about digging deep, and really caring about seeing this thing through, making sure it's as good as you can possibly make it. And the thing that I found is, and I'll share just 2 points. One is, as I make a movie, right, it gets so close to it that I lose perspective if it's any good. And indeed, I begin to fear that it's not a very good film.
Right.
So when we with Dovati and with the Heart of Camden, when we would have a premiere and the reaction was quite positive, trust me, I was very, very shocked. So just a little warning to filmmakers, you know, you might think it's not terribly good, but it's probably much better than what you think. The other thing is what Albert Maisel said to us in class, which is when he makes a film, his brother David was the sound person and Albert was the camera person, and you know, so one eye is looking through the lens and the other one is kind of wandering out here to see what else is going on. Now, I think he meant that literally and also as a metaphor. So the process of making a documentary, always look for the unknown or be prepared for the unknown, something that may just jump out that you just didn't expect that'll make the movie a bit more special.
I know. We both have made movies.
Yeah.
You've been much more successful. I've enjoyed the working on film festivals and getting them into reality for other filmmakers to get their movies shown and people to appreciate the hard work that goes into movies.
Yeah.
But I think all in all, though, it's something that you either enjoy doing and have a deep feeling for and are willing to get rejected and move on. And but as you said, having the grit and having the resilience is important characteristics. And people tell you can't do it, just do it.
That's right. Oh yeah. And everyone can make a documentary now. I mean, an iPhone, it's a wonderful tool to make a film. And and when you look at, or when I look at some of the short documentaries that have been submitted and accepted for an Academy Award, I mean, these are not slick Netflix produced films. These are films that tell an important story or a compelling story. So as I mentioned earlier, my goal has always been to tell an accurate story, right? And it's very much about the story. Like our film, I think is really good. I mean, mainly thanks to Bill and Frank, right? It's a beautiful film. But it's about Father Doyle. It's his story that really gets people. And so if you find a good story, tell it accurately, try to make it visually appealing, submit it to some film festivals. And I have to tell you, I think you do a wonderful job. The Nassau Film Festival, when Dovati was accepted to that, and it was shown in the Garden Theater in Princeton, that was such a professional, lovely experience. The people treated us so well. And then you had to switch to online with Cranford and with Nassau, and it was so professional. You made everything so easy. So, look for good film festivals, look for smaller ones to be accepted into, and just have some fun with it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So, if you have not seen The Heart of Camden, the story of Father Michael Doyle, I don't know what you're waiting for. Go see it right now. See what other movies that, like Davari, that Doug Clayton has done, and you'll enjoy it, and hopefully you'll be inspired by the message that comes across from Dr. Clayton's movies. It's really a pleasure to have had you on today, and I look forward for you coming back and talking about when your next film is on. We'll be able to highlight it here and talk a little bit more about it.
It'll be a great honor and pleasure when that happens. So, and thank you for your support and for what you do to give a voice to filmmakers, a platform for filmmakers to tell stories.
You're welcome, Doug. Well, that's our show for tonight, and I appreciate everyone watching, and hopefully you'll be able to talk a little bit about the show, and next week we'll be having somebody else on. But until that time, I'm Lou Goldstein, thanking you for watching. Until then, stay active, stay healthy, stay involved, and I'll see you next week on another edition of Focus On. Have a good night.
Every day,